Hi, folks. I'm Kim Adamski, HIV Prevention Specialist at the Hartford Gay and Lesbian Health Collective. Thanks so much for joining tonight. We have Kayla Reiter of Aware Recovery Services here today. First, I just want to talk briefly about the Health Collective. We are located in Hartford, Connecticut in the South End, 1841 Broad Street, and we offer services like STD testing, sexual health checkups. We have a dentist, we have support groups, health education, and we've been around since 1983. So if you do live in the Hartford area and need a sexual health checkup or STD testing, you can always give us a call, 860-278-4163. And so now I'm going to have Kayla introduce herself.
Yeah, absolutely, Kim. So first, hello, everyone. I'm Kayla Reiter. And Kim, thank you so much for having me here today and for everything that you do at the Hartford Gay and Lesbian Health Collective. The hard work that you and your team do, especially for the youth population, really doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm super excited to be here today to discuss youth and substance use. As these conversations need to be had and more importantly need to be heard. You're going to hear me say that a lot tonight. Basically, a little bit about me. I am originally from Miami Beach, Florida. That's where a lot of my family tonight is tuning in from. And the first question I get is, well, what are you doing in Connecticut? Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I know, I'm so homesick. But basically, long story short, I graduated from Florida Gulf Coast University with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a concentration in neuroscience. And I graduated in the middle of the pandemic. And basically, when I graduated in the middle of a pandemic, it meant I couldn't get a job. But what I could do is continue going to school. So I accepted my enrollment at the University of New Haven, and I'm now studying industrial organizational psychology, which is why I'm in Connecticut. So to talk a little bit about what I do at Aware Recovery Care and a little bit about Aware. So when I did get to Connecticut, I started looking for jobs, and I started looking for jobs specifically in the mental health industry. It's something that is near and dear to my heart, and I knew that was the industry I wanted to be in. And so what Aware Recovery Care is it provides in-home addiction treatment for up to an entire year across the entire state of Connecticut, as well as 5 other states. And so my role is I serve, just like Keith here, as one of the clinical outreach managers for Aware Recovery Care in the state of Connecticut. And so I focus on primarily the young adult population. And so what I do is I ensure 2 things. One, that the young adult population knows that we're a resource for them or their loved ones. And we provide an opportunity for them to engage in addiction treatment while staying in school, work, or at home. And 2, ensuring that I always have the right and appropriate resources to wrap them around with when they do get into our program. So those are the 2 that I do. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and my story.
Thank you so much. So can you tell me how you became interested specifically in treating substance use, especially with youth?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I jump into this question, as I feel like it's a lot, I have a lot of answers to this question. I'm going to discuss a little bit about my experiences in the mental health industry and my own personal experiences as an adolescent. So 14, or I should say the age of 14 for me was a lot of firsts. So it was the first time I started doing drugs. I started drinking, I started cutting, and I started getting very obsessed with food. And so that took me as a 15-year-old to a rehab where I spent my 15th birthday. That was basically an eating disorder residential treatment center, and I was in there for about 6 months, in and out. And so 8 years ago, I was one of the adolescents fighting for my own life at an addiction treatment center. So for my first meal in treatment, which was on January 7th, I sat across another patient, and she was a young woman. She was probably in about her 30s. And she stared into my eyes, and I literally thought that she was like staring into my soul. And she said to me, Kayla, you need to fight now. And that was the only thing she said. And she had said to me, you have an opportunity now that I wish I had when I was 14 years old. And this is my 11th time in treatment. She struggled with anorexia. She struggled with substance use. And so right after that, she put a stuffed monkey on my tray and she grabbed my hand and she said, "It's one bite at a time." And so it was in that exact moment that I knew that there was a power greater than me. And so I didn't start eating in that moment and I did not find recovery in that moment. But what I did find were three things: courage, strength, and hope. And so those three things is what I take in my own recovery and what I do when I advocate for others. And so basically, right after that, for the last 8 years, I learned that what fueled my recovery were those three things, and what really fueled it was helping others. And so for so long to this day, I watched not only myself struggle with addiction, but lots of my loved ones. And so I knew I couldn't just sit back and watch. I needed to be kind of at the forefront and do something about it. So at 18, I did a lot of seminars in middle schools and high schools. And at 21, I ran to be student body vice president. And the reason why I did that was because we needed two things: a more inclusive environment at Florida universities, and two, we needed more mental health resources. So I used that role to provide those two things for students. And so that's kind of just like a brief history of me and why I got to this role. And so the reason why I'm interested um, with substance use and overall addiction with the youth population is not only because of my ability to connect with that age group and their families, because of my own experience, but because we normalize addiction. We normalize addictive behaviors. And at this age range, we consider it experimenting, and it's not. There's a lot of kids that are experimenting, and that's okay. But there's a lot of kids that at that, they reach that next step and it's not experimenting anymore. And so we talk so much about prevention and little about intervention. And so we talk about different services and we talk about webinars and seminars, but this population just doesn't have enough intervention services. And that's why I came into this role and why I'm interested in continuing in it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's a really great story you have about how your life relates to, what you're doing now, and also really cool how you ran for student body president so you could improve mental health services on campus.
Yes.
Very cool. So, back to specifically our mission at Health Collective is for the LGBTQ community. So we know overall that LGBTQ plus folks report substance use more often than heterosexual and cisgender folks. For anyone who doesn't know what cisgender is, sorry if I'm telling you all something you already know, but cisgender means somebody who's the gender that they feel like matches the sex they were assigned at birth. So for example, I feel like a woman and I was assigned female at birth based on the appearance of my genitals. And also bisexual folks have higher rates of substance use in particular, higher than other LGBTQ groups. Among teens, we know that 3/4 have tried alcohol by 12th grade. 21%, which was actually higher than I thought, have used prescription medication recreationally. And when it comes to LGBTQ teens, the rates are even higher, and that's according to Human Rights Campaign. So, Kayla, what are some reasons teens start drinking and using drugs?
Yeah, Kim, you're absolutely right. So first, I want to mention that addiction doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone and everyone. But some people are at higher risk. Some behaviors make you, at an increased rate to become addicted. But just like I previously said, the reasons why adolescents utilize substances is just so complex. To name a few reasons why teens drink and use drugs, as well as who's at a higher risk for addiction, would be a few things. So one, teens who struggle with other mental health disorders, so such as depression and anxiety, are more likely to dabble in chemicals for a sense of relief, for a sense of escape. Teens who are moving or transitioning between schools, so maybe going from middle school to high school, that was something that affected me. It's a drastic change. They have all these friends and they have a secure group to now they are a little fish in a big pond. And they use it to distract themselves from their emotions. And that's a lot of times things that happen to a lot of big transitions in their lives. It doesn't only have to be different schools. A lot of kids utilize substances to fit in. Making friends and establishing oneself at school can be so hard for adolescents. There's just such constant pressure on them. And the teenage years often come with insecurities, low self-esteem, and fear of not being accepted from others. Another reason is competition. There is such a competition in this age group. They feel this constant need to perform, not only for themselves, they put on a mask and try to be the best version of themselves, but for their parents, for their coaches, for their teachers, to try to get into colleges. And so, or on the field. So they use this as a way to either stand out or to not. And the last three reasons are: one, lack of education. And so some adolescents and young adults grow up thinking that drugs and alcohol is normal. And they see their parents drinking every weekend, their favorite musicians are singing about it, the movies are glamorizing it, and TV ads are selling it. And substance use disorder then becomes a glamorized for this population, and it pulls them in and they fantasize about it. Today I had a call with a mom who told me that their kid tried Xanax because they wanted to know how it felt. Lack of education. I would say they wanted to try it out, they wanted to experiment, but that is a highly addictive drug that now the kid is taking for a day and tried to be in our program. So this is something that, you know, if there is education about it, which we'll get into in a bit, this could have stopped it from happening. And the last two are family history of addiction puts them at a greater risk. As we know, it's a genetic disorder, and teens who feel like they're not valued by their parents or their loved ones feel like they need to utilize substances more.
A lot of those are the same reasons that adults use drugs too, but I mean, with the intense feelings of being a teenager, I mean, being a teenager is really hard, and I mean, people do drugs because they make things feel less hard. Obviously, they have a lot of potential complications, and that's what we're talking about today. So do you find that minority groups have different or more factors that make them more likely to use drugs and alcohol? LGBTQ kids in particular, but I mean minorities in general all have certain things in common.
Yeah. So when it comes to minority groups, all the factors I just discussed pertain to them as well, just because they're also adolescents in this population. But at the same time, it also is crucial to remember that minority groups often face an increase in social stigma, discrimination, and other challenges that as a result cause an increase of stressors, and that makes them at an increased risk for various behavioral health disorders, including addiction. And so to be more specific, I'm just going to throw a few stats at you based out of the state of Connecticut, but I'm sure it's similar in all the other states. In the 2019 National School Climate Survey in Connecticut, it was demonstrated that schools were not safe for LGBTQ plus students. And on top of that, this data revealed that LGBTQ plus students in Connecticut did not have access to important school resources such as LGBTQ plus curriculum, and were not protected or supported by their educational system. So that is something that is majority of the time going to make them turn to substances, going to make them feel not enough, going to make them turn to different places that are not always the best because school is not giving it to them. Another stat that I just want to throw at you that I found so interesting was that most LGBTQ plus students in Connecticut experience anti-LGBTQ victimization at school. They also experience victimization at school based on disability, so that's 40%, race and ethnicity were 18%, and religion was 16%. So yes, all the other factors do play a role, but at the same time, they face so much more that puts them at a greater risk.
Yeah, I actually have a distinct memory in high school. We had the first trans person I ever knew was in my study hall or something. And I mean, being in high school, obviously, like everybody else, they did annoying things, but people were really, really rough on this person and brought up things that weren't relevant, like specifically their trans status and stuff. And like thinking back on that, and like, I don't know what their life was like or anything, but that would significantly increase the amount of stress that I felt in high school if that was me. The other thing I want to say is that the National School Climate Survey, I would guess the reported rates are probably lower than they actually are, because I remember taking surveys like that in high school, like, have you used this drug? Have you used that drug? Have you done this sex thing, etc.? And I'd be like, well, I don't want my teachers to know I wrote this.
Right, right. So I totally am there with you that they must be even higher, because surveys, kids are scared and they're like, I don't want people to know this is me. And so they're not going to answer. But just even those numbers alone were just like incredible.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, obviously drugs and alcohol carry risks for people of all ages, but teens are also still developing mentally and physically. I mean, some often even into your mid-20s, especially in terms of judgment, which is why we know that teens make, on average, some iffy decisions. Not that we adults don't. But what dangers do drugs and alcohol present to teens in particular?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So first, the growth and development of teens is huge, especially in their brain development when they're using substances. That can play a role with their brain development. Two, it increases the comorbidity of other mental health disorders and other risky behaviors, so such as unprotected sex, dangerous driving, increase in suicide rates. And on top of that, a lot of kids are going in for psychiatrist appointments or therapy appointments. And if they're using substances, a lot of the times they're getting the wrong diagnosis. And so then they're put on medication, and it's starting a cycle that a lot of them are not going to be able to get back. And so on top of that, it contributes to the development of adult health problems. So that could be like sleep problems. A lot of teens right now are relying on marijuana to go to sleep because it relaxes them, or they take an edible before they go to bed. And so now their whole sleep schedule is messed up. And so when they're older, they're going to have to rely on medication. They're going to have to look for other types of things in order to help them just go to sleep. And alcohol and drug use, if you didn't know, it's a leading cause of death for teens because of injuries related to car crashes, suicides, violence, and drowning. And substance use at this age, it starts this revolving door that we talk about in the addiction world of going in and out of treatments and starting this at a young age.
Now, myself and probably a lot of folks here learned a lot of scare tactics in health education about drugs. I just remembered today one that I saw that this kid, like, it was like a video, and this kid did cocaine once, then he was at dinner with his family, felt sick, and then fell on the floor and had a heart attack and died. And I was like, I mean, I guess that could happen, but I don't know if that's a realistic risk to portray here compared to the actual risks. So, and I mean, seeing something like that and then learning that it's not likely, you're like, well, what else did they lie to us about? Maybe cocaine's not that bad, huh? Let's try it. So what are some good ways adults, like parents and educators, can teach kids about drug use accurately and effectively? Things that actually make kids less likely to do drugs.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I always tell parents, as my job is talking to parents a lot, is open dialogue between the parental unit or whoever the guardian is and the child. So please do not ever use scare tactics. As Kim said, they are not always the best approach when discussing substance use, and do not fantasize about substance use either. There's a gray in that black and white thinking, right? So basically, I always tell kids that I always tell parents, don't just like sit down with your child and have this serious talk one time and then just like throw it away. Like, don't do that. You want to have that over a prolonged period of time. So what you want to do is you don't want to cause them to feel ambushed or defensive. So you just want to break it up over time, maybe having different topics in your head as a parent or a guardian, just bringing them up smoothly. You also, as a parental unit, when discussing substance use or any type of kind of like the birds and the bees talk, you don't want it to be a lecture. You want it to be more of a conversation. You want it to be a dialogue. Allow them to ask questions because you want them to be involved in it and learn about, what you're talking about, rather than, okay, mom, like, shut up. I don't want to hear you anymore. Like, I get it. And then you want to explain the factors that we talked about above so they have an insight to what leads into substance use disorder and addiction. The major goal when you're talking to your kid is you want them to get the clear message that you want them to be safe. You want them to be safe, but you also want them to understand the dangers. And maybe you want to talk to them about their family history if they are at a high risk for addiction. The last thing I want to talk about is adolescent devices and their social media, because the information on there, and I know parents try to make sure that they're not on this app and this app, but they're going to find a way. The best thing that you could do is encourage them to download apps that help them. So all of our young adults in our program, we have like an app resource page, and I always try to get them to download apps that they're going to enjoy. So maybe it's not meditation. Maybe it's not a meditation app that's good for them, but maybe it's a smart recovery app. There's a few apps called Smart Recovery, Sober Tool, AA Speakers to Go, Came to Believe It in Recovery. Those are great apps that kind of just take you away from like the garbage that we fill our minds with and really get you into something that's a little bit better for you, because they're on their phones all the time. We might as well use it to help them.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, I'm on my phone all the time. So, I mean, especially during quarantine, like how else would you even get your social fix as a teenager, which is really important. So
Right.
Good tip. And I mean, what you said about making it a recurring conversation, as somebody who's more usually more focused on sex education, that's what I tell people about sex education. Like if you see something in a movie or something, just make it a natural conversation.
Right.
All right. So what advice would you give to a teenager whose friend is having trouble with drugs, or if they themselves are having trouble?
Yeah. So as a friend, first and most importantly, don't talk to your friend while they're intoxicated. Don't talk to them in a group setting, and don't do it at a party. You want to wait until it's an intimate conversation with your friend and that they're sober. And the three things that you want to bring are empathy, love, and understanding into that conversation when having this type of tough conversation. Try to avoid bringing in an agenda, your own agenda. And I always recommend motivational interviewing. There's a study, Miller and Rolnick, they simplified motivational interviewing for like average people, not like psychologists or psychiatrists. And basically it's an acronym called RULE. And I always, when I talk to like young adults or adolescents, I always bring this up. So it's resist the writing reflex, understand your friend's motivations, listen with empathy, and empower your friend. Those are the four things, even if you're talking to an adult or anyone and you want them to really understand what's going on without you having to lay it all out there, use RULE. And so, for example, instead of saying you need to stop drinking due to embarrass yourself every time, maybe say something like, what do you think will happen? Or what do you think you will lose if you give up drinking so much? Really give them that opportunity to tell you what's going on. Or instead of being like, you're just a complete idiot, like, but I'm really worried about you and I want you to stop drinking so much, maybe say something like, has everything been okay lately? Do you think you've been drinking or doing more drugs than you did last month? Give them that time to self-reflect rather than throw it all at them. I would also say it's 100% okay to talk to an educator or a counselor or someone you trust if you don't feel comfortable having this conversation alone, to bring in resources. And if it's you that is struggling, I would always say seeking resources is the scariest thing in the world. It's terrifying. As a 15-year-old who went to rehab, it was terrifying. But sometimes you need it, and that's okay. And so confiding in someone you feel safe talking to, and it doesn't only need to be mom and dad, an ally, a friend, whoever the case might be, it could be a teacher, that's, something that will do so much. And so I always tell friends as well that stop with the attitude as I'm snitching on them or I'm telling on them, and start with the attitude that you could be saving your friend's life.
Awesome. Yeah, I love motivational interviewing. When I discovered that was a game changer for my work. So awesome and I mean, yeah, you're right. Anybody can do it. So you did mention, talking to parents and stuff, but, not all kids have a supportive household. And in particular, LGBTQ kids are at risk of this because LGBTQ folks are still like, heavily stigmatized, even by family. And they might not know where to go for help. And what do you recommend in this kind of situation?
So I recommend a few things. So one, the first thing I would say is go to an educator or social worker. All schools have a counselor or social worker on their campuses as a resource. And that would be an external resource who can help you talk to your mom and dad so you don't have to do it by yourself. Going to an ally or friend or a mentor or coach, maybe a youth group or, maybe a YWCA. If you're involved in those type of things and have someone that you look up to and can talk to about this, talk to them about it. Another resource is checking out there's online support groups. So there's AA, there's NA, there's Smart Recovery. There's so many online resources right now because the virtual world is just fantastic. And so build your support that way. You could build an entire support network like I used to do Anorexic Bulimic Anonymous. And I had friends in Australia and New York, all over the world. And I never met them. I've had lots of phone calls with them, but they were my support system because they understood what was going on. So I would say that if you can't go talk to someone that, is a mentor or friend, there is online resources that are safe for you to build your support network as well. And if something that we do at Aware Recovery Care is if a social worker calls us that a kid is struggling with substance use disorder, we bring in mom and dad and kind of all have a conversation so the kid feels safe to have that conversation and feel supported to have that conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for all these great resources. I mean, I know, like you said, the prevention end of it for drugs, I mean, while we have like the scare tactics and those issues, there's quite a bit of prevention, but like you said, not a ton of resources for people actively having this issue.
Right.
So we are starting to butt right up against time. So I do want to leave 5 minutes or so for questions from the Peanut Gallery. So Peanut Gallery, unmute yourself and talk. No peanuts?
Well, I'll ask just a follow-up on the last thing you said. I wonder what you think about, like when I was young and struggling myself, the communities that were available were not helpful and in fact harmful. And now there's a lot of stuff that's like, people generated. Like, I mean, I know now I find a lot of myself in Reddit and more, like healthier communities. I know some younger, I don't know a lot about Discord, but I know that's a thing for younger people too. And I wonder what you think about like sending people that way versus like helping them engage with resources that exist that both have the pathway for being really harmful, but also potentially useful. If even like TikTok, like you can get a lot of really harmful things on your feed, and you can also get some pretty solid resources. So
Health
yeah.
Collective is on TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah. That's like a really great question. And like, I get that from a lot of parents a lot. Like, should I take away their phone? Like, that's a really harmful, device for them because of the things that they're looking at. And I remember me, like I don't remember what it was called. It was like an ask.com where like people were really mean, but like I still had it. And so it could be really great, but it could also be really harmful. So I really believe it's very individualized. And so if we educate, teens on maybe there are healthy ways that you could use it, or maybe, that's not a good resource for you. Maybe we need to take that off completely. I feel like it's trial and error. Like we can't tell an adolescent who's really just starting in everything, like, this is not good for you, get off of it. That just never works. They're going to find a way to get on it. But these are really great. TikTok, fantastic. I mean, but also has really harmful things when it comes to like body issues and so many other, and that can cause eating disorders, whatever the case might be. So I think there's no right or wrong answer other than like really educating that there are healthy ways to use it. And like, that's what I do with apps of like, there are really good things, but also maybe you need a resource face to face, or maybe you need a different type of resource.
So I appreciate that. Oh, I'm sorry. So, I mean, what I was thinking specifically about Reddit, but would work for a lot of things like that, is you want to look for communities that are well moderated and have well-defined rules. Because like, you have mental health communities that are really positive and helpful, but then also I remember being in high school on Tumblr, and there was like a pro-anorexia community, which obviously on the other hand is very unhealthy. And probably doesn't have as good moderation and stuff. So it's really dependent.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, we are going to post this again on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/HGLHC, as well as our YouTube. And also, we will provide our contact information so that if you have questions, you can always email or call. So Health Collective's number is 860-278-4163, and my extension is 111. And also my email is kim.a@hglhc.org. And you can, I'm the one that runs the social media accounts too, so you can contact me that way. And how can people contact you, Kayla?
Yeah, so the best way to contact me, so my direct phone number is 203-631-6450. That's my direct Aware Recovery line. So if you have any questions or need a resource, even if I always tell families, even if they're not a good fit for Aware Recovery Care, I will always provide teens, families, as many resources as I can so they can always feel connected and feel like they have somewhere to go. And the last way to contact me is my email, Reiter, K-R-E-I-T-E-R @awarerecoverycare.com. And those are the two great ways to contact me. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming live, and also to everybody who attended. We had great attendance tonight. So, all right. Have a great night, everybody. And I will provide Kayla with the information on how to access the video if you want to see it. So you can email me or Kayla to get that information.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Kim.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Have a
coming.
great night, everyone.
Have a good night, folks.